Okay, so I wanted to go over some stuff. I want to back up Slytiger. He's a younger guy. He's a combat vet, but he's not as highly trained outside of the military or in the tactical world as a lot of other guys do. So there's a little bit of jealousy when he sees guys like James Yeager, who really hadn't seen that much combat, on issues. So he doesn't look or sound as qualified as guys like James Yeager. He's definitely not as qualified as guys like Pat Max or some of the other guys that are high-end professionals who also do training. Got to realize that a lot of times your combat experienced guys were not the ones that were always at the training thing. They're out doing the job. On that sense, though, different strokes for different folks. And one of the things we have to understand also is that in a lot of military operations, you kind of have an idea. They're not as fast as a video game. And you kind of have an idea once the enemy's in proximity, okay, everybody chamber up around. And one of the things that I would look at in supervising a unit, whether it's on a small scale, I don't think I ever went beyond squad leader and a lot of stuff. Occasionally, I'd get to run what's left of a platoon type thing, understrength platoon type stuff, where it was like platoon in name only. It was really a squad size unit. And what happens is, if we're trying to mitigate losses, okay, now we are going to calculate what's our likelihood of enemy contact, what's our situation, how do we mitigate risks and losses. And I'm going to look at a situation where if we chamber live rounds, that means the enemy's probably in close proximity, something's probably about to go down. And then, of course, if we're on the attack, then we can choose that. Even moving up to an attack position, we may not chamber rounds, because as soon as you start chambering rounds, you run the risk of an accidental discharge that would give away the unit's position or maybe intent. And so under those circumstances, no, chambering live rounds is kind of a big deal, and we tend not to do that until we're ready to fire. Now, in bringing a weapon into play, let's say drawing a weapon or something like that, are you prepared to use that weapon? Okay, sure. But there's a lot of circumstances where you have to do a show of face. You have to do a display of seriousness. You have to brandish weapons in order to let everybody know, hey, guess what? We're here. We're in the game. Now, you want to talk or you want to shoot? Depends on what's going on. The issues on that are very different ethical issues. Okay, they do. There's a lot of people who come out of their house, they hear bumping at night, you come out, rack a slide on a shotgun. Different issues. You rack a slide on a pistol, on a 45, 1911. Everybody goes, oh, this guy brought out his 45. Oh, what's going on? Okay. Do we do this to win the gunfight right now? Do we try to win the gunfight without firing a shot? According to Sun Tzu, you would. Okay, so there's certain aspects of displaying weapons and doing that where you do it when you're serious. You don't do it when you're not serious. If somebody starts doing that shit and I say, oh, I didn't really mean it, I wasn't trying to be serious, then I'm like, okay, asshole. We're gonna straighten you out. And I've dealt with some individuals who carry. They do like behind the hip carry, and the guy starts fucking talking like he wants to start dictating everything and having his hand on his gun as he's talking, like he's playing cop or bouncer. He's going to be in for retaliation. Okay, that's how those things work. Okay, and but when we talk about whether or not you would carry with a round in the chamber all the time, if you're in circumstances where you think that you need that extra second of less prep time to take a shot, we've got to look at a whole lot of other circumstances of what's going on. Because if you don't carry around in the chamber, it probably takes two hands to bring that gun into action. Whereas if you do carry around in the chamber, you can bring that gun into action with one hand. Now, what a lot of experienced shooters are going to figure out is you're usually more accurate when you use two hands with a firearm, any kind of firearm. And when you use it one-handed, it's conversational distance stuff. And with a lot of one-handed type guns, you would also look at the fact that maybe sights don't matter. Maybe physical size of the gun, barrel length, that doesn't matter. And that's where you get into a different class of pistols, most of which are going to be specifically engineered for concealed carry, rapidly bringing into action, and those are not necessarily going to be military service pistols like the Glock. The Glock was designed as a military service pistol. The owner's manuals and everything talks about don't carry it with a round in the chamber. It's not really intended to be with that type of weapon. And the only times it really would be carried with a round in the chamber is in a proper holster. This is not a stuff it in your belt line type gun, or a pocket, or a back pouch in somewhere, or a little hidey spot type thing with a round in the chamber, because you can be fishing around for that thing in a pocket and discharge the trigger. If there's no round in the chamber, it's no big loss. If there is one, well, then you got a problem. And you don't just have the problem of the injury. You're giving away your position. You're giving away the fact that you may be carrying a gun under a restricted circumstance. There's a lot of people who want to play the gotcha game. Okay, and the gotcha game is where, dare you to do something that's even less and less safe and more risky, and then when you have an... So there's this game that, especially the Glock people like to play. It's called gotcha. And it's where people dare each other into more and more unsafe behavior, high-speed type stuff they call it. And then if somebody has an accident or something like that, it's like, aha, gotcha. Oh, it was user error. You zigged when you should have zagged, and it's all of you. Well, the reality is there's usually some kind of circumstance, artificial stress, they were tired, or something else going on. The other thing is, of course, somebody decided to go with high-speed practices, okay? And there's reasons. I think the Navy SEALs adopted a SIG 226 a long time ago. And it wasn't just that the gun can handle salt water and all that stuff, but there's a double-action first shot, a true double-action first shot, which means it's harder to pull that trigger in under circumstances where you just whipped it out. But if you need to pull that double action first shot, then it can be done. It's just harder to pull that double action first shot than it is when you're firing for accuracy. And the idea is that it's two guns in one. It's a double action carry piece, and it's a single action accuracy and reliability piece. And the idea is that if you really need to worry about that stuff, then you look at what law enforcement's traditionally done for decades, especially a lot of cops who work undercover, is they're carrying double-action revolvers. Okay, small double-action revolvers. A lot of times these guys can have those things out in a hurry, because it's all about speed. It's not really about outgunning a whole lot of other people. And that's where a lot of these guys are going to look at that double-action revolver, especially some compact double-action type thing. That's the primary weapon, and then something bigger is a backup. See, it's a kind of a reverse of the military thing where the biggest weapon you have is your primary weapon, and then your backup is, okay, if something goes down, you step to a smaller one. That goes down, you step to a smaller one. In a law enforcement world, and I think it's valid to look at it in the concealed carry world, is your primary weapon is something smaller, and then if that doesn't work, you step up to something bigger. Oh, we got to win a major gunfight. Okay, we got to get a bigger thing. From the survival standpoint, a lot of people say, your pistol is what gets you to your rifle is what gets you to something bigger, or your survival retreat, or something like that. And so, from that standpoint, you would look at these things a little differently, but a lot of it, it's determining what type of weapon somebody's going to carry. And for me, in my legal situation, I'm not going to be carrying a firearm on a daily basis, so I have to make some tactical adjustments on that. Dare somebody start treating me like I'm the impotent guy, and they can treat me any way they want to because they have a gun and I don't? Well, okay, pal, you're on a retaliation list, and you'll get there real quick fucking playing that game with me. But when somebody is like saying, no, I got to be 0.5 seconds faster than anybody else on a day-to-day basis all the time, every time, I'm not going to want to do business with somebody who's, deciding that they always got to be 0.5 seconds away from killing me. You're going to behave like that around me, around anybody I care about, anybody I care to do business with. You're down the road. Okay, I'm not going to deal with somebody who's going to be in condition, yellow plus, all the time, okay? Understand situational awareness, that type of thing. Somebody's stalking around, okay, we got a problem. Go check it out. All right, we'll see what this asshole wants. We understand that. Everybody who's been around understands that. But if, your paranoia level and your awareness level and your tactical level is so high that you got to have, you got to be 0.5 seconds away from pulling the trigger and using deadly force, then I'm thinking that we've also raised the danger level for everybody around. That's why we've got these problems with trigger-happy cops. It's one of the issues that we've had fratricide shootings in the military. Everybody's jumpy. The invasion of Panama, that shit was going on all the time because the Panamanian military and the U.S. military wore the same uniforms. The only difference was whether or not something, what the label said on the uniform, and a lot of times the names were the same. Somebody named Sanchez. Well, shit, that's half of some of these Army units, whether Panamanian or U.S. And then in the Marine Corps, these guys didn't even, at that time in the Marine Corps, we didn't even have name tags on the uniform. You had to look for the EGA, and or a little bit different hat, but if they're in a helmet, you can't tell the difference. And then if they're wearing a bunch of gear that covers up the EGA, you're not going to see that. They would say that you had to roll your sleeves down, and everybody figured out, well, you got to roll your sleeves up so we can tell our guys from their guys. Those types of things happen. So when somebody talks about being really fast to win a competition and these types of things or little situations, it's not all going to work the same, okay? And the reason we would go armed or something like that is to mitigate risk. We can't eliminate risk, but we can mitigate risk. And with certain firearm designs, certain modes of carry, whether or not you have a holster, whether or not there's legal risk, if it's a permissive or non-permissive environment, those are going to dictate whether or not you can have a round in the chamber. Not whether or not some dude's being more hardcore than another guy. There's a lot of other factors, and you need to be able to address all of those.